In 396 BCE, a four-horse chariot team thundered across the finish line at the Olympic Games. Breeding, training, and maintaining a champion team required astronomical financial resources, an enterprise typically reserved for the absolute richest figures in the ancient world. But the owner of this winning team was not a king, nor a wealthy merchant. It was a Spartan princess named Caniska. She funded the entire operation using her own immense independent wealth. Across the rest of the Mediterranean, this level of female financial autonomy was exceptionally rare. In democratic Athens, women were legally classified as perpetual minors. They lived under the strict guardianship of a male relative and were entirely barred from independently purchasing land. Yet in Sparta, a deeply authoritarian, intensely militarized society, women were breeding racehorses and controlling vast agricultural estates. To understand this society, we have to look at how its rigid institutions inadvertently produced the most economically powerful women in antiquity. The demographic engine of the Spartan economy relied on an immense, subjugated population known as helots. Making up roughly 60% of the inhabitants, these enslaved laborers handled all the grueling demands of agricultural production. Because the helots worked the fields, Spartan men were entirely freed from manual labor. In return, the state demanded that every male citizen enter the agoge, a highly rigorous educational and training system starting at age 7. This lifelong, totalizing commitment to the military physically removed men from the daily management of their own homes. They lived in barracks, trained endlessly, and fought in prolonged campaigns, creating a massive administrative vacuum on their privately owned farms. With the men deployed, the domestic economy required new management. The strict design of the Spartan military machine abandoned the agricultural sector, leaving a void that the women of Sparta stepped up to fill. Spartan women stepped into the administrative vacuum to oversee production, managing agricultural estates that functioned as high-yield economic engines. Managing these properties was a heavy logistical operation. Wives and daughters oversaw dozens of helot workers, managed expansive olive groves and vineyards, ensured strict crop quotas were met, and negotiated the storage and deployment of agricultural surpluses. The state's absolute demand that men commit completely to the theater of war left families with no other option. By forcing men to act as full-time soldiers, Sparta indirectly mandated that its women become highly sophisticated economic managers. But administration is entirely different from ownership. To see how these women accumulated this land, we have to look at inheritance law. In Athens, if a father died without leaving sons, his daughter was legally forced to marry her nearest male relative, a mechanism designed strictly to keep the estate within the paternal bloodline. Sparta rejected this model. A Spartan heiress, known as a patriarchos, retained direct legal ownership of her father's estate. She also maintained the freedom to marry whomever she chose. Even more unusually, Sparta practiced a system of property transfer called diverging devolution. Under this system, universal female inheritance was standard practice. Even if a woman had living brothers, she still received a substantial independent portion of the family's property. Over generations, this legal framework caused land to permanently pool into female hands. Because this wealth often functioned as a legally protected dowry, land holdings merged into massive estates when these wealthy women married. This accumulation of land was accelerated by the battlefield. Relentless warfare against rival Greek cities enacted a severe demographic toll on the Spartan citizenry, continually shrinking the male population over decades of conflict. As husbands and sons were killed in major engagements, their properties did not revert back to the state. The land inexorably funneled into the legal possession of the surviving widows and daughters. We can see the material reality of this wealth today. Archaeological discoveries emerging from the Amyklis sanctuary in 2026 reveal concentrated deposits of intricate bronze jewelry and highly crafted mirrors, physical evidence that these women commanded significant disposable income and actively directed local ritual exchange. These artifacts provide a material baseline that contradicts the image of a strictly austere society. The ground itself reveals a sophisticated female-led economy preserved in the Laconian soil. Over time, this concentration of wealth exposed a vulnerability in the Spartan system. To maintain elite citizenship status, every adult male had to produce a fixed monthly agricultural surplus from his private land to pay for his communal military mess. Because inheritance laws allowed elite families to endlessly consolidate land into female-controlled estates, poorer Spartan men on the margins were squeezed out. As their family plots fractured, they simply could not generate the crop yields required to meet their state-mandated quotas. Failing to pay those dues meant immediate demotion. This created a crisis known as oliganthropia, a devastating shortage of fully enfranchised citizen warriors. Men who missed their quotas were stripped of their voting rights and their place in the elite phalanx. The economic empowerment of Spartan women was directly linked to the systemic economic disenfranchisement of thousands of Spartan men. By concentrating the territory's wealth into so few hands, the inheritance system hollowed out the military core and precipitated the empire's collapse. Ancient philosophers watched this collapse happen. Writing in the 4th century BCE, Aristotle observed this massive wealth disparity and placed the blame squarely on the women, viewing their economic power as a sign of civic decay. But these women were acting rationally within a brutal system explicitly designed for war. In the permanent absence of their husbands, they maximized the stability of their households to ensure their families survived. The wealthiest women in ancient Greece didn't emerge from a progressive ideology. Their power was the structural byproduct of military necessity, demographic attrition, and unique property laws, demonstrating that radical shifts often emerge as unintended consequences.